Welcome to Sew and Tell, where sewists from fashion, theater, and indie sewing bring their different perspectives to the hottest topics in the sewing community. I'm Amanda Carestio.
I'm Kate Zeinard.
And I'm Meg Healy. Today on the podcast, we're talking about pattern hacks, why we love them, and how to get started with them. Then, by special request from listener Danica, we're going to talk about the funny mistakes we made as beginner sewists. Then we'll each share a little something in our SewJo segment, and then we'll ask you to share something too. But before we begin, how are we? We are, is it 2021 yet? Because I feel like I've been home forever. How was our weekend?
Oh, well, I am pretty excited because this weekend I actually managed to sew something. I was cutting out a pair of pagosa pants on our Instagram Live last Friday, and I actually managed to get them all the way sewn. They're done and ready to wear, and I'm super excited because, as you all know, I've been in a sewing slump, and so I'm just so excited that I actually managed to complete something. It's my first pair of anything, or first anything I've sewn for myself all year. So
all
that wasn't for work.
All
year.
Yeah. You know what?
I mean, I've done a few masks. I guess that counts. And I have a dress that I made for so long. But this is the first thing.
You've made some magazine projects.
Yes. This is the first thing I've made for myself. That's not for work. Or a mask. I guess the mask is for myself. But I feel like it's really a step. Yeah. It's really an accomplishment.
Oh, no, totally.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, hoping the sewing slump's over, you guys.
I know. Can't wait to see what you make next.
Yes, I've got some thoughts, but we'll talk about that later.
Nice.
Awesome. I spent a lot of time sewing this weekend, too. I wasn't planning on it, but on Friday, I just got super inspired and kind of couldn't stop myself, and I sewed up 2 scrappy Antero box tops. That was the Antero shell tops. Super fun. I was just using my scraps and kind of winging it. And I don't know, it was kind of experimental and just kind of, it was super fun to kind of just get lost in the moment a little bit and push everything to the side and just sew a little bit. It was kind of awesome.
Yeah, I saw those on Instagram, and I love them. They look so good.
They are super fun. I thought at first they were a little bit too wild for me. There's definitely a lot of like pattern and color together that I don't usually do. But I don't know. Now I'm kind of living in them. Yeah, they're going to be my comeback from quarantine style. Yeah, I'll have all patchwork garments.
All patchwork. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're very coordinated. You know, you've got your black and your neutral colors, and they go together. Actually, they look planned. So, that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I could see those like in a boutique for a lot of money. I think they're so cool. I love them. I want to make some for sure. I'm gonna go through my scraps.
Yeah, scraps fun. Scraps are fun.
What'd you do this weekend, Meg?
Well, I was on the sewing train as well. I sewed 4 tops, a pair of pants, and 20 masks.
Oh, wow.
That's just insane.
That's amazing. Stop sewing. Yeah.
That's a lot of sewing.
I know. I think on, Thursday, I was making a project for one of the magazines. And then I was working with embroidery on my machine, and I hadn't done a lot of embroidery on my new machine, and then I realized how great it was, and so I started embroidering my willow tank that I made. I embroidered the front of that, and then that spiraled into, oh my god, I already have my Nini culottes cut out, so I sewed those, and I was still in the sewing mood, so I cut out an Antero shell top, and then I love that, and I made another one of those, and I made your sew your roll top. I couldn't stop sewing. It was great.
Well, and here I am feeling good about sewing 1 pair of pants.
I know. And you should feel good. But I feel like the more I sew, the more I want to sew.
I want to totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I love that. And I
was feeling pretty enthusiastic about jumping into something else. And then a storm rolled in and I came down with a migraine. So that pretty much stopped that in its tracks. But so there's my excuse. I would have sewn more except migraine.
No, you're good. Pants are awesome.
Yeah, it's just like when you get in the zone, like it's really hard to pull out from it, and I just don't
Yeah.
like to gravitate away. Like Julian was like, "You're working too hard. Are you okay?" It's like, no, this is what I want to do. Like I don't want to do anything else. Like I'm
not
um,
working, I'm playing.
yeah. Because I think he gets confused when I am like I do a lot of sewing for work, but it's
Yeah.
like he doesn't see when I'm sewing. Like late at night or on the weekends, he just all lumps it into work in general. I'm like, no,
Right.
like this is also my hobby. And then he's
Mhm.
like, you're working too much. I'm like, no, this is fun.
I try to
Yeah.
I try to actually differentiate that myself by sewing work stuff during work hours and sewing other
Yeah.
stuff during other hours.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that does any good, but at least it mentally helps me keep everything separate.
Yeah, no, I try and do that as well.
Same
But
here.
yeah. Yeah, that's a really good tactic for sure.
Yeah.
especially for work stuff because I like to get shots of every sewing step, and I need the light to come in, so I'm like fighting against the light, and it's just so there's that. But yeah, so I can't wait to sew some more. I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Shall we hop into our first segment, you guys?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, I love this topic, and I think that it's a good time to talk about it as people are kind of at home, making the most of what they have with their fabrics, what they have with their patterns, and maybe wanting to do a little bit more with the patterns that they have in their library. I think that pattern hacking is something that has been a thing in the sewing community for a long time, but it's definitely seeing an uptick in popularity as people become more and more confident and more experimental. Everything from small changes like the hemline to major design revamps. There's just a lot of experimentation and fun happening right now in sewing, and I kind of love it. So I was curious to hear, Kate and Meg, where you guys fall on the pattern hacking spectrum. Do you do it a lot? Do you do it a little? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What's your take?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to ask, just to be sure, when you're talking about pattern hacking, you're talking about mostly style changes, right? Not changes for fit?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So for me, I usually have a set of standard changes I make to a pattern because of my pear shape to make sure that everything fits me right. When it comes to pattern hacking, though, I love the idea of it. And I love working on articles in the magazine about how to do it, but I almost never actually do it myself. And I'm not precisely sure why that is. Sometimes I have the idea and then I just kind of don't implement it. I don't know. So I'm pretty on the I don't hack very much scale side of the scale, but I do like the concept of it, and I would like to, I don't know, learn more and do better. That's what I think.
How about you, Meg? I think I know the answer, actually.
Yeah,
me too.
I love pattern hacking. I think it's so much fun. It's a chance for me to get out my rulers. Like I even have like a column in Sew News about doing that very thing. It's pattern play, taking a pattern and changing it up. I find I do more pattern hacking when it's like on a whim, because I like to pattern hack something that I already know that fits, because usually pattern hacking, it's the same with like pattern making. What I learned in school, you are adjusting the style without adjusting the fit. So there's like different pattern making things that you can do, because unless because as you were saying, fitting and pattern hacking, pattern modification are two very different things for sure. So yeah, I'm all for pattern hacking. Love it, love it, love it.
How about you, Amanda? I also know the answer to this.
I love pattern hacking, but I don't tend to do as involved pattern hacks as Meg does.
Okay.
I have a little series on the Sew Daily blog called Hack Light, which is definitely my mode for pattern hacking. I will pattern hack to a certain point, and I love to take basics and kind of revamp them in subtle ways so it doesn't feel like I'm wearing the same shirt all the time, although I'm okay with that too. But I definitely dabble, and I feel like as time goes on and I have more and more basics that I know that I will wear, I definitely find myself expanding out from that and getting a little bit more experimental. Um, what would you say your hacking style is? And I guess this one will largely be for Meg. Are you a heavy planner, or are you more of like a wing it and see?
It depends. If it's something like my wedding jumpsuit, or if it's like a special occasion, or it's like these pair of like pants that I really want to like custom make, it's then I'll plan it out where I actually do a sketch, and then I use that sketch to and pattern blocks to do that. So it depends on, but if I'm just kind of feeling like making, a crop pair of, trousers, maybe put a ruffle hem on it, and then I'll just like on a whim do it. But I guess it depends on, but I like doing both. I tend to do right now, I tend to do more of just on a whim, just like kind of see how it goes. Like I just kind of have an idea and I just whip out retrace the pattern to just do it and see if it works. And so yeah, depends. How about you?
Yeah, I definitely do both.
Yeah.
I plan it out and then something inevitably goes wrong and I wing it and come up with a resolution on the spot, and make it work. I think I do a little bit of both. It depends on how involved the hack is. If it's just something like something small, then I don't really plan it out. And I've tried to become a little bit more formal about my pattern hacking. Like before, like I would just lay two patterns on top of each other and try and kind of meld them together and cut around that. Like, and now I will actually trace it out on paper first.
Nice.
But which is nice because then I can go back and remake the hack.
For sure.
And know that I'll get a good result. But that's not something I always do. Meg, I'm curious to know too, I'm curious to hear your answer. When you make something for the first time, do you hack it, or do you like to make something one time through following the instructions as it is on the pattern envelope and then hack it the next time?
It really depends. Like if I have like a runway inspiration, or I have like a sketch that I want to do, I'll just scroll through and find a pattern that's kind of close, and then I'll just hack it right from there. But I usually don't. If I make a pattern really to the original, it's because I really like the original style, and I'll make it once, and then it'll be like, oh, that was easier. Usually it's if I really like the fit of it, then I will go back and hack it. If I just like the style originally, then I'll make it as is. But if I'm, for a pattern play column, if I'm, have a certain inspiration or something, I'll just kind of go right into the hack. So yeah.
Yeah, I cannot remember what pattern it was. I'll have to do some digging, but I feel like there are at least 2 or 3 patterns that I've never made them how they're supposed to look. I just keep hacking them.
You just keep hacking them. Oh my gosh.
I think the Roscoe blouse might be that for you, actually, because I don't think you've ever made it with the full sleeves. I think the first one you made had sleeves that had been less voluminized.
Yeah, I have, but I had to make them shorter to fit my yardage, which is another thing. I definitely pattern hack around my yardage.
Oh, to fit yardage. Totally.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun things. Do you have a favorite kind of pattern that you like to hack?
I feel like the Antero shell is going to be my new go-to for hacking. I know
super
that's
hackable.
What you used on your patchy one, and I like. So 2 of my tops this weekend I made was that pattern, and I'm completely obsessed with it. Like I knew it would be great. Like I know you've made it a bunch of times, and I sewed it, and it looks kind of like a square when you make it, but then you put it on. But the way it drapes on your body and like how I love it's like a tank, but a t-shirt while it still covers my arm. Like I'm really I like my arms covered, but not too, it's like the perfect. And I'm gonna literally all I want to do is just make hacks of it. I want to try different necklines, like adding like sleeve like bands like you have, and then adding like gathered ruffles to the bottom. Like but yeah, definitely like a blank canvas, like something with like it's really fun to play with like panel lines. I love doing that and like color blocking for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes I buy a pattern because I love the look of how it looks on the envelope, but I also know I can hack the heck out of that thing. Like the Wixton Shift is really a great pattern. On its own, there's a top and a dress, but there are just so many ways that you can hack it. So I think and I feel like that's, added value for me to know going in that I'm want to hack something in a bunch of different ways. What's your line for when a pattern hack is too big? It's like, you want to make something, you've got like an inspiration, a starting place, and you think, well, I could hack this, but I'll have to do this and this and this and this and this to get it to that point. So do you have a line in the sand when it comes to hacks being too big?
For me, when it becomes to that point, I just make it work because I've already in so deep. It's exactly. If there's all these lines on it, I need to like rotate darts. I need to eliminate darts and like, but then, I've already spent all this time like searching for that pattern, printing it out, doing all the and I could never just be like, all right, maybe this won't work. I hate admitting failure.
I know. I hate giving up.
But definitely, there should be, I guess, my beginning, like pattern drafting, hacking, I would do that a lot more often. Now I'm a lot more experienced where I can just know that it'll work better on one pattern than the other. And a lot of times what I do is I'm very like imaginative, like I need to see things too. So a lot of times I just like look at the pattern pieces on the computer screen before I even like print it out, and I can kind of like mentally like look at it and draft with my eyes, so and see if it would work or not. So not recently, but definitely that has happened before, for sure.
Yeah, and I'll say, I mean, I think that a lot of my hacks happen because I've looked for the pattern and the pattern doesn't exist yet. So it's like I know that I want this certain thing with these lines and it doesn't exist. So I'll find like the next closest thing and know that I can adjust it from there. But I think that brings up a good point. And I feel like there's a learning curve for hacking. What do you think are good skills to have if this is something you want to jump into as a sewist?
Ooh, I can actually talk to that one.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to say something.
Yay.
I think it's important to be able to look at a pattern piece and kind of see what it is and how it's going to fit together with the rest of the pattern. I know I was putting together my my pants yesterday, and I was thinking I didn't use any instructions. I've just put them together, and I've done those pants before, so that was no issue for me. But I was sitting there thinking, somebody who doesn't really know how to sew, who had never sewn pants before, might look at the pattern pieces and be like, how does this turn into pants? And, we've been doing it long enough that we can look at a pair of pant patterns and be like, oh, I know how that turns into pants. But I think that is something you kind of have to be able to do in order to hack, is you have to be able to see how things are going to go together. Because if you don't understand that, then changing them and still having them go together is not going to happen.
Yeah, because then there's the point where I guess if you are a very instruction follower, right, and you do hacks, it's like, when do you sew that hack into it in the sewing? So you have to have like a process to you have to let go of the pattern instructions to a certain point, because you'll have to, accommodate for something that you've adjusted. Yeah, I never thought about that before. I guess because I just never, myself, I never look at the instructions.
Okay. Well, and that's because you know it so well. But I'll tell you, when
No,
I'm sewing
yeah.
Berta, I mean, when I'm sewing Berta patterns, I have to look at the instructions because Berta patterns tend to be weird shaped, and I have more trouble telling how to put them together. But you know, it and that is a thing. The more complicated the pattern, the harder it is to do that. Which is why if I do any hacking anytime soon, it's going to be on fairly simple patterns where it's very easy to see how they go together.
Yeah, I was going to say something along those same lines, like having sewing order knowledge, like knowing the order of the steps so you can know where to kind of insert your changes. And I think also like maybe knowing enough about fit to know that if your change is going to alter the fit, which is something that I think surprises me still, you know, that it, you know, a change affects the drape or affects the fit in some way that you hadn't anticipated. But I think it's also like you do have to let go. You have to be a little bit more experimental and be willing to fail because I think most of my bigger fails have come from pattern hacking. And that can be really disappointing. So I think that you kind of need to know that ahead of time. So, and I think I don't pattern hack back to back. Like I will take a break from it and do something that I know is going to work out. And then maybe I'll jump into something a little bit more experimental, then go back to something I know is going to, you know, and kind of go back and forth because I think that doing pattern hack after pattern hack, while it's fun and you learn a lot, it's, I feel like there are always surprises, even if you've planned things out really well, and we can get into that a little bit. Do you have a favorite hack of all time, Meg?
Oh, well, what I do a lot of times is my favorite go-to hack is eliminating darts into style lines because you can transform a dart, like you just extend the dart tip into a seam line and then you trace out each section with the dart leg on either side. And that's my favorite one to do because I hate sewing darts. I don't even really like the look of darts sometimes in my garments. Like surprisingly, the willow dart placement on my willow tank, they're perfect. They actually like hit at my bust. Sometimes they're like way up there and I'm like, oh no, I think I need a better bra.
Exactly. I am 100% wearing a willow and I'm 100% checking my my dart location right now.
But
and just found that one of my darts is coming apart and I need to resew it. Okay, moving on.
Oh, or again, I love to add pleats to things. I love to slash things up and separate it, add pleats. So either like eliminating darts through style lines, and yeah. And also like adding like even just finishing details can be a hack too. Like sometimes I'm not a huge fan of sewing bias strips as finishings. I like facings. And so if something doesn't have a facing, they're so easy to draft yourself and just trace off and just face an edge. But yeah, I will say too, like I like to also hack tops into dresses, etc. But as you were saying, Amanda, you need to know how things can affect fit. I know, and we'll get into this later on, but like some oopsies, like beginning, if you take a top pattern and it's a woven and you just continue it down straight, but it's narrow enough, it doesn't go past your hip line. If the top, it's going to be, you can't wiggle it past your butt. So there's like, those are some considerations as well. So definitely practice totally makes perfect. And I mean, I suggest if you want to get into it too, like there's so awesome books on pattern making and pattern hacking. For sure. I know, like for me, I went to like, it was a whole class in school. And it was just like so eye-opening. I remember we would have like, I took 3 years in fashion school and every semester we had like every week, I think it was like 8 hours or so of pattern making classes a week. Like there's just so much to learn and it's just so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely, I I think that my favorite kind of hack is like combining patterns, like
Oh, I
taking the
love doing that
sleeve from
too.
this and putting it over here. There's a
Yes.
I just did a blog post on So Daily about, I used the Aster body, which is like a button up blouse from Colette Patterns, and I added the Roscoe blouse sleeves for a little bit more volume, and I do that a whole bunch. I've hacked the Nini culottes like 72 different ways.
Oh, I need to do some research. I need to do an Insta deep dive on yours to see all the ways I can make my ninis.
They're all subtle changes, but again, like ways to make them, feel like a different pair of pants. I did just undertake my biggest pattern hack, which was to create a boiler suit from a button-up shirt and overalls. And I made one, and it was a pattern hack success, and I love it. And it was totally one where it's the Callie shirt and the Roberts collection dungarees.
Cool.
And it worked. It was great. But then I combined the patterns, and then I realized I needed a little bit of waistline shaping. So I kind of had to come up with some creative solutions. But in the end, like it was exactly what I wanted in my head. And then I made another one in a slightly thicker fabric. It was a twill, because I wanted it to kind of be like a fall, early spring weight boiler suit. And that one is probably my biggest pattern hacking fail, actually.
Really?
Because it just, everything went together super smoothly. I had done all the math right, but the fabric just didn't act the same as the first one I made, which was in a lighter weight linen. So it's currently timeout. That's also the one that is brown and has the UPS delivery person vibes. So that one's I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but yeah, that's probably my biggest pattern hacking fail. Do you have one of those on your list, Meg?
Oh, fail?
Meg
I
does
don't
not
know.
fail.
No, I honestly, because my sewing style is making it work. I think, well, actually I was making I can think of one. I was making a romper I wanted to wear to my bridal shower, and it didn't work. Like the fabric was too thick for the romper style. It was like, it had this metallic weave in it. It was like a twill, and it just, like, I remember putting it on, and Jillian was like, "What is that?" It was like weird. And I sewed on these sheer sleeves to this like thick, heavy, like fabric that, like, I was supposed to, like, it cinched into the waist and it was supposed to blouse over, but it wasn't lightweight enough to blouse. So it just looked like I was a marshmallow. But what I did is I just, so that was a fail. And I ended up wearing another dress that I made. So that was fine. But I ended up just cutting off the romper above the elastic casing, so it looks like a paper bag waist pair of shorts, and now it's like a beach shorts cover up. So
cute. That is the exact problem I had with my boiler suit fail. It's a twill, and it's supposed to, there's an elastic casing, and it's supposed to,
it doesn't blouse,
but it doesn't drape the right way.
It just sticks out. It doesn't kind of like go like over it. It just kind of goes no one else can see my
You're doing the perfect impersonation of fabric. That
yes, the gestures are magnifique.
Hopefully my sounds also translate what my hands are doing.
Merp.
But I had before I forget, I just wanted to say if you don't have rulers and you don't have pattern hacking knowledge, what you can still pattern hack by, especially I would do this a lot with Berta patterns. If you know your size that you sew in, just swapping out like this sleeve into this, like if you have two patterns you can just swap in different pieces and there's nothing to cut away. Like if you have dresses with a waistline seam, like Berta would always hit at the same waistline seam, and you can just swap in the tops and the skirts for them. And so it's like you can have like a library of just sleeves and tops and you just like swap them in, and you don't need to know how to use a ruler. You just still tape them together and you just mix and match. So that's a way to incorporate pattern hacking if you're not comfortable using trace offs or cutting into things, or, so that's just a tip that I have.
Yeah, that's a definite benefit of using the same, pattern company or pattern designer. Because you can, with all that, with the consistency, you can make those kinds of swaps. Finally, thinking about your career as a pattern hacker, what are some pattern hacking lessons that you've learned, like deep life lessons?
Choose the right fabric.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, choose the right
just
fabric.
Listening and do our fails. She's like, I think you might need to choose the right fabric.
Yeah, guys.
I can just fix all of your problems based on how you just described them to me, and it's pick better fabric.
Pretty much. I love that. That's perfect.
Hey, I'm contributing, guys.
Yeah. Oh no, I know. I love that. I didn't think of that actually.
I mean, I like pattern hacking. I think it's a nice different way of sewing. If you are, if you sew a lot of basics and you churn them out and you're creating your me-made wardrobe, it can be really fun to try pattern hacking. It's really different to kind of get into the math and the geometry of pattern shapes and try to experiment with those. I think it's also really fun to kind of get into those make it work moments and come up with those creative solutions as you go. I feel like when I'm in like the midst of a pattern hack, I feel kind of obsessed. I'm like, I can't let it go until I figure out how I'm going to make these pieces work together. Or, it's kind of nice to immerse yourself a little bit more deeply in a project like that. But I also will say, because of that, like I have been my most like mad at sewing and disappointed by doing pattern hacking that didn't work out. I feel like because you're just invested on a different level.
Yeah, you're invested and
you've got a vision in your head and you're going for it. And it can be disappointing. So that's why I kind of like intersperse some easier projects in the mix.
And it's like personal. It's something that you're trying to personalize. It's not a pattern that's just out there with the fabric. Like it is truly unique. And so maybe that. What was the question again? what don't you
deep
do?
Life lessons from
deep
pattern
life
hacking.
Lessons. Oh, geez.
They don't even have to be deep. I mean, if there's any I've definitely learned a lot about like pant rise from pattern hacking.
Yes.
I mean, you're basically just in there like fiddling around with things, and I feel like you learn a lot by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes even using the right like utensil, is that the right word for like a pen or something?
Tool.
Still call it a utensil, a tool.
Oh, a writing implement.
Yes.
If it's a pencil.
Are they still called utensils or no? Is that just making that up?
Think so. Utensils generally mean the things you eat with.
Sounds wrong to me. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you want implement.
Or instrument? Do you want instrument?
Yes, you're a correct drawing instrument. Because sometimes if you use like
all of them sound wrong to me now. I thought about it way too hard.
Now I'm playing my pen like the flute. No, like if you use like too thick of markers and stuff, sometimes the lines can be so thick.
Yeah.
And if one time I drew like lots of panel lines and I used a Sharpie, and each one of those lines was like an eighth of an inch thick. And then when I'm retracing them, if I don't trace them on either side, like you end up with a piece that's in the end like an inch shorter. So just using like I would just use pencil to start out with. And then the best thing is use a digital pattern. So if it doesn't work out, you can just print it again.
Definitely part of my pattern hacking plan for sure.
Yeah.
So question for you guys, just out of curiosity. If you're using a digital pattern, do you have a tendency to print out another version, or do you trace it off when you're hacking?
I will just hack and hack and hack, and then eventually need to print out another version of my pattern. I have a bunch of patterns like that I've like
so
cut
you just
apart,
work on your
taped
original
back together. Exactly.
Oh, I print one out each time that I do one
you?
because I like to keep keep them if I like the hack, or I have the original, and then I do like trace off. So I have my master plan if I'm doing style lines, and then I just do trace off. So, but then if I want to make that again in the original, like if I want to make a new hack to it, I print off a new one for a new master pattern for new trace offs type of thing. So yeah, I keep printing. But yeah,
I was just curious.
But I do really want to try and experiment with some like actual digital pattern hacking and trying to do it on the computer. I've been really wanting to, because I know in our episode we had, it feels like forever ago since we've covered like quarantine sewing topics, but like expanding our skills, like doing some digital pattern drafting and design has always I want to do that and experiment with hacking that way.
Well, thanks so much, you guys.
All I want to do is hack. I just like looking at things around my studio. It's like,
I can hack this and I can hack that. Awesome. Thanks so much. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come back for our second segment.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'm not sure anyone knows absolutely everything there is to know about sewing, but I'm sure that sewists who are just starting out have some pretty substantial gaps in their knowledge, which can lead to some serious sewing bloopers. Our listener Danica suggested that it might be fun to talk about some of our early sewing oopsies. So here we go. To get started, let me just ask you guys to remind us, how did you start sewing, how old you were, and who taught you? Amanda.
All right, I can go. I remember sewing with my mom. I think I was probably like 5 or 6, and I was watching her sew. And then I think when I was kind of like probably in the age range of about 15 was when I sewed my first dress from a pattern. And definitely on and off since then as I dabble in all the other crafts known to man.
Of course.
Nice.
Meg.
I started sewing, I think I was like 11 or 12. And I just wanted to make a lime green dress to wear for my grade 8 graduation. I couldn't find one. I said, I want to make one. My mom didn't know how to sew, so she put me in sewing lessons in the neighborhood. So that's how I learned. And then,
nice. And as for me, outside of a short stint in home ec when I was in middle school, from which I retained nothing, I started learning when I was in college, when I went into a costume construction. Well, actually, technically, it wasn't costume construction. I started learning when I was in my technical education costuming class. There's a tech ed, which was the basic stuff, and then a practicum. And then after you did those, you could go into the full costume construction class. So I learned through actual formal instruction from my teachers in those classes. So yeah, I think that's all kind of different places where we started. And I think that will inform to some extent what happened to us as we got started. So let's talk about the most basic mistakes. What kind of issues do you remember running into in your early sewing days?
Well, I would say fabric selection is a huge one. But that's something that I still occasionally get wrong. And I would just like to say, like, I think that, I don't know, I still make a lot of mistakes. And I think that you like, and it's because I'm like trying new things and trying to be experimental. And so I don't know. There hasn't really been a point where I like stop making mistakes because I don't know. I love that about sewing. Like you continue to learn, you continue to, you have those failures and then you do it different next time. But fabric selection, I mean, I definitely early on was very tempted by all the fun, like quilting cotton prints out there and tried to make myself mini a garment with quilting cottons that just, did not drape and were not comfortable to wear. And then I think also more recently, when I started sewing with knits, I ran into a lot of those issues as well with fabric, because then you're dealing with stretch percentages and different kinds of drapes and different kinds of, fabric compositions that all impact the finished garment in a different way. So I think probably fabric selection is a big one for me, and also a lot of fit issues early on.
Oh, of course.
Either really not paying attention to the finished measurements, not paying attention to the size chart, and doing my aspirational size instead of my actual size definitely caused some issues early on in my sewing career.
Well, it can be a hard transition if you're used to ready to wear sizing, going into pattern sizing. It's completely different. I know my friend, she started sewing again, and she's asking me she's like, it says I'm supposed to be this size, but I would never buy that size in stores.
Right.
Like, I'm just like, it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's different and getting more different all the time. The problem I always had when I was, especially when I was sewing like the big 4 patterns, I'm really short-waisted, and even so, anything fitted came up really short on me. I always felt like, why is this not at my actual waist? Because my actual waist is really high anyway. How high is this on everybody else? I have never figured out what the issue was there.
I mean, you definitely learn about the shape of your body as you sew. And I think that's I don't know, I could see that being a negative, but for me, it's really been a positive, to just have kind of like a realistic perspective about how my body is shaped and what I need to do. Like, it's kind of just more of like a matter of fact kind of a thing than any judgment at all. But fitting is tricky.
Yeah, I didn't. I've yet to read it, but it's definitely on my to read list. But I'm noticing. I know it's kind of off topic, but as we were just talking about this, it just reminded me on the Socialists. Jillian's writing a blog series, and she started the first one about sewing for gaining weight, and so how to I think she's modifying some garments, just kind of being conscious as home sewers, when that happens, how do we sew for that and stuff. So I think that was really interesting, and I'm really excited to read it. And I think she's getting some other sewists for that kind of series, and I think it will be really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What I did when I was when I was just starting off sewing, I would never take into consideration closures and getting in and out of garments. I would make so many tops, in quilting cotton that would be high neck, and how do I get into? How do I put my head out? Oh, you need a zipper. I was so I didn't I just didn't understand. I'm like, but it's like a top, and it took just lots of failing and stuff too, and you'd make a skirt and you just sew the side seams, and you're like, how do I get this on? So that was my big fumbles when I was starting sewing. And I remember just using a lot of Velcro. I would literally sew things and just put Velcro up the center back, and that was how I could get in and out of it before I learned how to sew zippers and stuff. Oh, it's funny. So that was my big thing.
Quick rigged.
I realized when I started sewing again and started sewing garments that I would, build out my wardrobe and be really wearable, I realized that in my early sewing days, I don't really ever remember paying that much attention to seam allowance.
Right.
I feel like I don't know what I did, but I don't remember paying attention to it or figuring out at the start of a project what the seam allowance was and sticking to that. I don't remember that at all. So I think I just didn't pay it very much attention.
To this day, my husband always sews with the fabric at the edge of the foot, no matter what foot he's using.
Yeah, I think I did that exact thing.
Yeah, you just find your thing. I don't remember doing that one. I do remember I had a major problem at the beginning with forgetting to put right sides together before I sewed a seam.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say that is not something that has entirely gone away. I think it has been relatively recently that I had to pull something out because I sewed the right side to the wrong side. I can't remember quite how recently, but I think it was in the past 6 weeks.
Oh, yeah. It's okay.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that it's a very basic mistake, but it's one that you still, if you're just going, sometimes you just don't check, and then you think you've got the right sides together, and you don't. Especially, I think it might have been when I was working with a fabric that didn't have a really distinct right and wrong side, so it wasn't easy to see. And I also remember having several garments that probably could have used some interfacing that did not have any interfacing in them. And then I remember one incident where I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention when I cut my interfacing or something. I don't know, but I ended up interfacing the right side of something. I think the same. It was the same on both sides, that fabric, but in the end, they were lapels. They were big dramatic lapels on like a ring master sort of jacket. And when I went to sew it, I discovered that I had two of the same side. I had like two right sides because I had put the interfacing on the wrong side of the other one. So I remember that happening. But I agree actually that looking back, I think a lot of my mistakes, and I think this is not a thing that has really stopped, does come back exactly like you said to choosing the wrong fabric, or not understanding how to choose fabric well. And I think it's true. You two have both told a story from within the past year about picking a poor fabric. My big Vienna fail was because I chose a knit fabric to do the Antero shell with and did not properly size down for a knit fabric. That's, I think it was my biggest trip up as a beginning sewist, because it was just, I was looking for color more than I was looking for something that would actually work for the pattern I was trying to make. This is the color I want, so that's fine. It's like, but it's not. But I know that now. But even now, I still make that mistake.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that even if you're like picking the right weight fabric for the pattern, you sew something up and it just, something about it doesn't work. Like the scale of the stripe isn't right, or this, there are so many reasons why a particular fabric pattern fail happens. So I feel like, I think it seems normal and natural that is a learning process, no matter how long you sew.
Yeah, possibly an eternal learning process. And yeah, I mean, I think it does come down to, there are so many things that can go wrong, isn't exactly the word, but can make a fabric the wrong choice for something.
Right.
It's the weight, or it's the amount of drape, or it's the color, or sometimes it's just the washing instructions. You make something that's meant to be worn every day, but it has to be dry cleaned, and that was a mistake. There's so many things.
And often I find too, I know Berta does this. I think some other pattern companies do this as well, but they'll list even in the woven fabric category, a certain like pants or dress pattern needs to be made with wovens with elastane in it. So with that bit of stretch in it, because I know I've made a pair of pants that didn't have that little bit of like spandex woven in, and they did not fit. So that's like another layer of like a
totally
fabric selection oops that you can do.
Oh yeah, you always have to keep an eye on that sort of stuff too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I had another like awesome goof that happened when I mostly sewed with wovens, and then when I made my first knit pattern, it was the Penny Raglan by Grainline Studio, not super long ago. But I was used to, using woven bias binding, and you want to measure it and make sure you've got it exactly the same length as your neckline. So when I made that first top, I was like, whoa, this neckband piece is so much shorter than the opening of the neckline. So of course I made it longer, and it doesn't work the way that it should to kind of bring the neckline in. But it's okay, because it's kind of got, the top has like kind of a ballet top vibe, and it totally hangs off my shoulder, but it looks like it maybe should. So
good.
But that was definitely a learning moment for me.
Oh, definitely. Yes. All right. Any other amazing goofs anyone wants to share? I'm seeing a no. So let's move on to our SewJo segment. Meg, take it away.
So, if I don't know if Amanda and I will have any left after our epic sewing weekends. No, we'll always have some. So now it's our SewJo segment. So, what is giving us our sewing mojo for the week? So, why don't we have Kate? Why don't you kick us off? What's your SewJo?
All right. Well, like I said, I sewed something. Maybe the sewing slump is over. We'll see. But as we were sitting here, I still have to do my my Sew Your Roll design. Yes. And Meg and I talked about that a little bit in our Instagram Live last week.
Yeah.
I've been struggling with getting fabric for it. My fabric was black, and I don't have a lot of black fabric. So I pulled out some knit fabric I have with bright silver skull and crossbones on it. And Meg has declared that to be appropriate for my Sew Your Roll. So I'm going to look at what I can actually get out of it. It's not that much, and it's in a couple of pieces. So I'm thinking it's going to have to be a fairly small tank top of some sort. And then I have to work in buttons somehow. So I've kind of been toying here, sketching as we were talking about hacking. I've been kind of sketching in a hack to add some buttons on there. So we'll see how that's going to work, but I'm pretty excited to give that a try.
Mm-hmm. I have an idea. If you're using a tank and you want a button, you could cut the straps so they're like in not adhered, and you could do like a button strap like at each kind of shoulder, or like a front yoke, like they could button up or something.
That's kind of what I was
the same thought.
Well, really? So did I. That's actually what I was thinking, but I think I'm going to do asymmetric and only do it on one side.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, and a little, and I think I'm going to do it at a little angle too. It's going to be cute according to my sketch.
Gonna get too nitpicky here, but if I can recall the Sew Your Roll, it said buttons with the S.
Well, yes.
Not button.
Not a button, but I am going to be able to fit at least 2 buttons.
Oh, okay. So,
space.
Okay, we're...
So
there's always not decorative buttons.
I will put on a decorative button somewhere so that I've got 2.
I think
that still counts.
It's funny, actually. I did the Joanne order online, pick up in store thing for my buttons it was like 6 weeks ago now. And I ordered these buttons I really liked, but they only gave me like half of what I ordered because they ran out.
Oh, no.
And so I can't use all of the buttons I was originally planning, but I can't really use the pattern I was originally planning either because I don't have the fabric for it. So I'm coming up with a whole new solution. It's going to be great.
Nice. So button. No, that's all I can think of. How about you, Amanda? What's your SewJo?
I'm definitely on the patchwork everything.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Which is like, it's bringing me back to my hippie sewing roots. So I'm super happy about it. But yeah, I've loved the, people using their scraps, and doing that myself has been really kind of inspiring. Of course, I've got stacks of new fabric that I've purchased that are waiting to be used, and instead I'm using my scraps. But it's fun. It's been kind of, use your brain in a different way, use your sewing brain in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I've got a couple of other similar kind of projects in mind. So yeah, that's it for me. What about you, Meg?
Cool. Well, I just printed out this morning. I'm going to do some hacking actually to make on the Athleisure Capsule Studio collection, my Sherwood top that I made. I'm doing, since it has like a center front seam, I have this like black and white stretch kind of stretch rib fabric, but it's not like as heavyweight as like a ribbing, and it will work for top. So I'm going to do like a kind of a patchwork, like half of it is like, so like the black and white cookie equivalent of like a top or so. And I might do the sleeves like opposite. So, and I want to do long sleeves. So I'm going to do like that top with the gathering in the front, because I need more like comfy knit tops with longer sleeves. Because still in my house, like it's not quite warm enough to wear t-shirts, like all these shirts that I made, but I can't wear a sweater. I get too hot. So I need like what I'm wearing now. I just need more of those. So I'm going to be working on that. And I'm super excited to actually hack up that design that I did. So it's printed out and ready to go.
Awesome.
Yeah, so let's do our sew and tell. So last week we asked you, oh my gosh, yes, our fun event, our fun event game. So what event would you love to sew for, and what would you do to make for it? And now I'm just realizing the questions that I pulled were for our other question that was, what are your summer sewing plans? So we're going to read those as well. Maybe next week I'll pull some, because I do want to know the events and stuff. So what we'll be reading is actually people's summer sewing plans, because we touched on that in the last episode too. We kind of asked two questions.
Exactly. Oh, I like these responses though.
Yeah.
These are going to be inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
The first one that we got was from Lisa Poblins on Instagram. Hi, Lisa. Who said, I really want to make another version of Simplicity 8689 in cotton gauze. I made some bright colored slips in cotton lawn to go underneath. And of course, I want to make all the breezy tops and elastic waist shorts. Oh man, I looked up this pattern. I wasn't familiar with it. It is so pretty. It's kind of kind of got a boho look to it, big sleeves, a nice kind of front yoke to it. But this is definitely trending, because I can't remember what this trend was called, but it was kind of the overlay with so the lighter weight fabric on the outside and then the slip underneath. So totally cute, totally on trend. I love it.
So on trend. Yeah, love that. Oh, and gauze right now. Oh, I just can't get enough. Can't get enough.
All right. We also heard from So Haligonian, who said, I want to try making a short-sleeved button-up romper out of a lightweight or medium-weight woven fabric. Kind of like a short-sleeve, short boiler suit. I can just picture myself wearing it with my leather crossbody belt, bag, and sneakers without having to adjust my clothing at all. # tired of pulling up my pants.
I love that hashtag.
I love that hashtag so much. And that
it
does sound super cute.
I want to click on that hashtag in Instagram and be like, well, who else has posted on I'm tired of pulling up my pants?
Could get dicey.
Lots of plubbers.
Yes.
Oh, so nice. Okay, so we also had another comment from Silly I think that's how there's lots of L's and I's.
Silly Lily.
Silly Lily. Oh my gosh. I love that though. And they said, this semester I took a flat patterning and draping class. I'm really excited to start making myself some looks that can customize from concept to wearing, which is awesome. So I love that. And kind of ties in with today's episode even too.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I'm not going to screw up the sew and tell segment this time and actually remember to read the question. I was shocked that Kate put me back on this assignment to read, because I've forgotten to ask the questions more than once. So this episode's question is, what's your favorite way to hack a pattern? What do you like to do? Add panels? Do what I do, eliminate darts? Do you just like to lengthen? Like, let us know and get us inspired to do some more pattern hacking for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need to get on this train. So inspiring.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And before we go to thinking about like pattern hacking and making, and where I really learned all of my pattern making skills was in fashion school. And I just want to give them a bit of a shout out, because this episode airs on Thursday, and Thursday what day is that?
I think it's
the 30th.
April 30th.
So on May Yeah. So on May 1st, on Friday, May 1st, if you're listening to this before that at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'll link this in the show notes. They are the graduating class after the 3 years. You design a whole collection, you make it, you flat pattern it from concept. And it takes almost a year. I remember it took us pretty much the whole final year to produce this collection, but they can't have their live fashion show, which is like they invite industry people. And the past several years, I've had the pleasure to be one of the judges, and it's a wonderful student showcase. And they're doing it live this year. And the theme is zero waste, sewing sustainability. And I'll be tuning in. So if you want to tune into a sort of a student showcase where I went to school, you can do that. And I'll be watching it as well. And I'm excited to see it. So just wanted to plug that in there.
Yeah. So find the link in our show notes because I totally want to check that out.
Yeah. I'm excited.
So fun.
Lots of memories, great memories from producing that collection and that show. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, great episode today. I think it was super inspiring and maybe encouraging a little bit, just to remember that we're all still making all of our mistakes.
Totally.
All right.
Oh, so many hacks I want to do and so many mistakes that I don't want to redo.
Fingers crossed.
So many future mistakes to be made.
So many future mistakes, but
it's part of the process.
It is most definitely.
Totally.
All right, everybody. Stay well, stay healthy, and happy stitching.
Happy stitching.
For links to everything we talked about in this episode, go to our show notes page at sewdaily.com/sewandtell. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at sewandtellpodcast@goldenpeakmedia.com or visit us on Instagram at sewandtellpod. Answer the Sew and Tell question, tell us your SewJo, or just leave us some feedback. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe on your podcasting platform of choice. And please leave us a review, ideally a good one, because that helps listeners like you find our podcast. And tell your sewing friends about us too. Thanks for listening and happy stitching. This episode, go to our show notes page at sewdaily.com/sewandtell. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at sewandtellpodcast@goldenpeak.